Hello folks, I'm so very happy you're here. My name is Joe McGowan, welcoming you from the haunted hills of Sleepy Hollow in Westchester County, New York. A mysterious destination where it's said the veil that separates reality from the realm of ghosts hangs most thin. It is also, of course, home to one of the most iconic and potentially deadly ghosts of all time.
A phantom mercenary on horseback, that of an American Revolutionary War-era Hessian Jaeger.
Oh, and did I mention he's headless? And I hear he's looking for a replacement. So join me on a journey into the past and into legend as we track the story behind Sleepy Hollow's biggest bad. Or maybe he's tracking me.
The image of the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow is as recognizable as iconic monsters like Dracula and Frankenstein's creation. A chief ghost whose impact on popular culture has reverberated over centuries. Appearing in various media, the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow is a symbol closely associated with Halloween in America.
But tales of headless riders go back millennia. The Dullahan of Ireland, the birthplace of Halloween, for instance, is a frightening apparition.
Serving as a grim reaper, death incarnate. Similar figures appear in Great Britain, where Arthurian legend tells of the Green Knight, a mysterious being who was beheaded in a contest by Sir Gawain, a knight of the Round Table. But this does not hinder the Green Knight, who rides off, head in hand, vowing to take the young knight's head the following year. The horseman also shares ancient roots in the Yuletide pagan tradition of the Wild Hunt, a night when a roving spectral hunting party, mounted, flies through the sky, trailing their ethereal game. The ghostly procession led by a legendary figure from Germanic, Celtic, or Slavic mythologies. Even Santa Claus, the big man himself, shares origins in the Wild Hunt.
But Sleepy Hollow's Headless Horseman officially made his debut in 1820.
When author Washington Irving published The Legend of Sleepy Hollow in a collection of short essays entitled The Sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon, a pseudonym of Irving's. The legend is a humorous tale of a newly arrived Connecticut school teacher, the superstitious Ichabod Crane, and his rivalry with local tough guy Brom Bones, in pursuing the affections of Katrina Van Tassel, a wealthy bachelorette.
The story ends with Ichabod encountering the Headless Horseman on his way home from the Van Tassel Halloween party.
Whether the horseman was Brom Bones in disguise, or the very ghost himself, Ichabod Crane had altogether disappeared from Sleepy Hollow. Writing the legend in England, Irving drew on his experiences as a teen in 1798, when he moved upriver to North Tarrytown, New York, to escape a yellow fever outbreak in Manhattan.
During his time in the Hollow, Irving learned of the local history, as well as its many ghost stories.
Blending a perfect soup of fantasies and realities, various elements have contributed to Sleepy Hollow lore over the centuries. In this presentation, we will be exploring some of the stories that make this place what it is. The story of the Hollow itself begins with the Wecquisgeek, a Munsee-speaking people who populated the river shores of Westchester County. Following the arrival of Dutch settlers in the early 17th century, the fragile peace between Wecquisgeek and the colonists broke in 1643 when New Netherland Director General Willem Kieft launched a brutal military campaign against several native factions in the region.
A maverick, Kieft acted against the insistence of his Council of 12 and the wishes of his citizens,
massacring native camps in a merciless frenzy, plunging the region into chaos.
The Dutch East India Company Board of Directors soon had their fill of Kieft's horrifying governance, and Kieft was discharged in 1647.
Peg-legged Peter Stuyvesant now assumed command of the colony. As Kieft sailed to Amsterdam to argue his case with the board, the ship Princess Amelia ran aground off the coast of Wales, killing Kieft and 85 others aboard. It's said the long-woven magics of the Wecquisgeek have lingered in Sleepy Hollow centuries since. Irving even notes strange phenomena occurring in the skies over the Hollow.
This concentration of paranormal activity is also attributed to the workings of a, quote, high German doctor, a witch named Hulda of Bohemia.
Hulda was a reclusive woman, living along the fringes of the Hollow. She was an herbalist and a healer, brewing special concoctions for her neighbors when they fell ill. Distrusted by the Hollow's most devout, Hulda was condemned as a witch and shunned by community leaders.
In the early days of America's war for independence, Hulda insisted she tend to wounded militiamen injured in local skirmishes with the British.
Though she was kept at a distance, Hulda's efforts helped save the lives of enough patriots that when she died in 1777, while ambushing a British march, she was granted a Christian burial on the grounds of Sleepy Hollow's Old Dutch Church in an unmarked grave along the church's north side.
The same year Hulda was laid to rest on the church grounds, the Hollow would burn.
Now, it would be remiss not to mention the Van Tassel family when discussing Sleepy Hollow history. Inspiring characters from Irving's legend, the Van Tassels were a long-since established family in the area. Their farm was a bountiful 200-acre enterprise, well-stocked, and their stately home sat proudly on the Sawmill River. Lieutenant Cornelius Van Tassel was a career military man, and when the colony revolted against British authority, the Van Tassels sided with the rebels. Along with his brother Peter and teenage son Cornelius Jr., Lieutenant Van Tassel thwarted British operations throughout Westchester County. Embarrassed by these defeats at the hands of deserters, Britain's governor of New York Colony, William Tryon, endeavored to crush the fledgling American forces with his ruthlessness.
Tryon ordered all military defectors be rounded up and their properties confiscated, offering hefty reward for their capture.
On a frigid night in November, the Tory Westchester County militia, on horseback, fell upon the Van Tassels. Peter and Cornelius were arrested at their homes and brought to New York City, where they were held for 11 months. Their livestock was stolen away, and fire set to their estates. Lieutenant Van Tassel's son was smoked out of the attic and fled to the Sawmill River, where he plunged into the icy waters to escape his pursuers.
Though the boy evaded capture, complications from the night's exposure caught up with young Cornelius Jr. 3 years later, ending his life.
As the Van Tassel home burned, the displaced family could only watch. Shivering in the cold, the Van Tassel children clung to their mother, Elizabeth, as she shielded her tiny baby daughter from the night. The heart-wrenching scene touched one of the riders, sending the horsemen storming into the burning home, returning with blankets for the shattered family.
Sheltering in a dirt cellar, the family survived the night, ever grateful for the actions of the considerate horsemen who surely saved their lives.
In retaliation for the destruction of the houses of Van Tassel, a group of rebels infiltrated British territory to the south and burned the home of Tory General Oliver Delancey under cover of darkness. Led by a blacksmith named Brom Martling, who inspired Irving's rough-and-tumble Brom Bones, the men returned to the Hollow undetected, triumphant, and celebrated as war heroes. This retaliation, however, only fueled Governor Tryon's cruelty, who then raided and burned rebel villages up the Hudson River and along the coast of Connecticut.
The governor's violent campaign only strengthened the Americans' resolve.
After the war, Lieutenant Van Tassel sought to reclaim his lost estate, but was unable to restore it to its former opulence. Of the numerous ghostly inhabitants of Sleepy Hollow, Irving makes mention of Major John Andre and the tree that witnessed his capture. Andre was an intelligence officer and the contact of infamous American traitor Major General Benedict Arnold of the Continental Army. Arnold turned coat and conspired with Andre to surrender the fort at West Point to the British, America's gateway north.
After discussing plans with Arnold behind rebel lines, Andre made his way back south, dressed in civilian clothes.
Andre was stopped in Sleepy Hollow at the foot of a creaky old tree by 3 American militiamen, who soon uncovered the traveler's true identity. Arnold's betrayal was exposed, and Andre was taken across the river to Tappan, where he was sentenced to hang by General George Washington and his council.
On October 2nd, 1780, the noose was tied, but an air of melancholy hung on the execution's onlookers.
Even though Andre was an enemy spy, he was a true gentleman. Up until the noose tightened, Major Andre accepted his fate with dignity and grace, and the Americans couldn't help but regret the Major's death just a little.
There are reports the horseback ghost of Major Andre haunts the spot, not where he died, but where he was apprehended in the hollow.
His soul bound to a gnarled tree that no longer stands, Major Andre's tree. Three days before the Halloween of 1776, General George Washington, defeated in the Battle of Long Island, lost New York City to the mounting British Army. Washington took his remaining men and retreated north to White Plains, New York, where the Army supply was headquartered.
Washington had to move quick. Redcoats and Hessians, led by General William Howe, were on their heels in hot pursuit, determined to bring a swift end to America's war.
The chase was paved with skirmishes, until the Americans fell into defensive positions on Chatterton Hill.
Throughout the day, waves of loyalists attempted to push through the American lines, but were held off.
A mounted Hessian company then engaged the Americans. Hessians were soldiers for hire, employed by the English crown to aid in military operations. Hessian soldiers were sourced from multiple German states, but the majority were trained and deployed from Hesse Castle, where Hessians get their name. Hessians were fierce soldiers. The Jäger Corps, Jäger meaning hunter, or a specialized unit within the ranks. Distinguished by their green uniform, Jäger could operate more self-reliantly and took on a variety of roles. Hessians were instrumental in the Battle of White Plains.
The beginning of the end of the Battle of White Plains was when the Jäger Corps broke through the militia holding Washington's right flank.
After the Hessian horsemen tore through the lines, the British poured in, and General Washington, a master of preservation, sounded the retreat. It was a fighting retreat. Founding Father Alexander Hamilton served in the Battle of White Plains as an artillery captain and scattered cannon fire onto the advancing forces while they withdrew. American Major General William Heath, in his 1798 memoir, recounts the grisly scene he witnessed at the Battle of White Plains. A shot from the American cannon at this place took off the head of a Hessian artilleryman. They had also left one of the artillery horses dead on the field. It is estimated that roughly 450 lost their lives in the battle. Legend then has it the body of the Headless Hessian was brought 8 miles to Sleepy Hollow. It said the Van Tassel family, despite some local protest, respectfully buried the decapitated man in an unmarked grave in the cemetery of Sleepy Hollow's old Dutch church. The family remembered the horseman who saved their lives. The one who retrieved the blankets from the burning Van Tassel home was a Hessian.
They figured, whether the headless soldier was him or not, the deed was their gratitude for the nameless Hessian's mercy.
Whether you believe the stories or the timeline, one thing folks in the Hollow know to be true is that the Headless Horseman is buried in the old Dutch church cemetery. And when night falls, his spirit rises. Atop his hell-steed Daredevil, the Hessian haunts his hunting grounds, a broad swath of Westchester County where he seeks his lost head.
So travel safe, friends. Be alert, and be sure to keep a good head on your shoulders. Hey folks, thank you so much for joining me on this little adventure through Sleepy Hollow. If you enjoyed this presentation, please give the video a like, and you can also subscribe to the channel where there are even more Hudson River tales. I want to thank everybody who's enjoyed these videos. It's been a lot of fun researching and making these videos, and I look forward to uncovering more mysteries in the area. So, be good folks. Cheers.